Hello and welcome to the Dirt and the Divine. I'm Krisha Young, your host, an executive growth strategist, author, and advocate for living a fully aligned and unapologetic life. This podcast is built on the philosophy that every beautiful life has its roots in both the messy and the magnificent. Here we share raw and real stories from incredible individuals who faced life's toughest challenges head on, dug deep into their souls, and took radical personal responsibility for their lives. They didn't run or hide from their struggles. They explored their emotional landscapes, owned their experiences, and emerged authentically, living in joy and alignment. Through these conversations, my hope is to inspire you to think, wow, if they could do that, then I can too. This space is about embracing the journey, the dirt, and the divine, because together they shape a life worth living. Please note that this podcast is for general discussion only and is not a substitute for therapy, legal, or professional advice. Now, let's get started. Today, we have a super fun, awesome repeat guest, Abigail Rebecca. She empowers women to be iconic as a human design business mentor, EFT alchemist, stylist, and international speaker. She has 29 years of experience mentoring seven-figure visionaries from Fortune 500 executives to mission-driven entrepreneurs. She's worked with top brands such as Disney, Royal Caribbean, and Soho House, helping them amplify their presence, expand impact, and grow wealth. Her mission is to help female entrepreneurs rise as iconic leaders, fully seen, expressed, and aligned. Using human design, deep energetics, and strategic guidance, she supports women in stepping into magnetic visibility, scaling with ease, I love that, and attracting high-level opportunities for lasting success. So today we are going to deep dive into what does it mean to become iconic? And what does it mean to be more visible? And I really want to pull on Abigail, your experience working with these big brands, and just women in general, and like how you help women like emerge into being iconic and being more visible. Because I know a lot of women struggle with that kind of stuff. So hi, hello.
Hi. Yes, we do. Why do we struggle with it?
Well,
Well,
let's
let me tell
let's
you.
start talking about that. Why do we? I mean, why do we? I have my opinion and I would love to hear yours.
Mm. Well, I mean, pulling on my own personal experience, when you mentioned there when I was in corporate and I was a senior leader within corporate. I handled a big old budget and a big team, and still there was this real imposter syndrome that I had. Like, I wasn't good enough. I was trying to be like everyone else, and I didn't. I mean, we talked about human design. I'm a human design projector. So at the time, I didn't realize I was a projector and I was trying to like keep up with the generators and manifesting generators and doing all the things and trying to prove my worth, and kind of struggled through that a little bit. Had a quite a serious heart condition that developed, and that got me to leave corporate. And that's when I retrained to be a personal stylist. So that was my first ever role as an entrepreneur, as a personal stylist. But it wasn't really until I started building and growing my business that I realized that there was a lot of stuff that needed to be cleared around, imposter syndrome and worried about being judged and criticized and showing up, and stuff that was really making me hide. So every time I tried to be more visible, speaking on stages, hosting summits, being on summits, coming on amazing podcasts like this, I'd be saying the words, but underneath I would not even believe myself. And it was really impacting the way
Mm,
that I was showing up in my leadership. So that's when I realized that I really needed to do some work around it. And, what helped me was human design. So really learning more about myself, learning about or just uncovering the blocks that were holding me back. And then a big piece of it really was the style, because I was really interested in it, and that's what I trained to be when I left corporate. But really like exploring like that, like how do I want to show up? How do I want to stand out in an authentic way and not look like everyone else? At the time I was working with a lot of very glamorous American coaches, and they all had the same hairstyle and they all wore the same clothes and they looked amazing. But I was like, I'm not like that. I'm British. And like my style is different. I can't walk around in heels all day long, like as much as I want to. So I think that's one thing, from my own personal experience that really started to help me craft that and stand out and be more visible and then start to really create this brand. Okay, what does iconic mean to me? You can look in the dictionary. Iconic means a person who's like wildly admired, for having great influence or significance in a particular sphere. But how can I be iconic? So it's like a step up from visibility, like how are you going to really stand out in an authentic and really empowered way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is amazing. So I've made some notes here because there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that we can shoot off from. First of all, when you showed up this morning for this conversation, or it's evening for you, I guess,
Yeah.
I was like, yo, you look awesome, right? Like that was the first thing I said because I really respect and admire style. And I just wanted for a quick second, I want to nerd out on fashion and style and stuff like that because there's a difference between fashion and style. And fashion has its place and it has its thing, and then I lean towards style because style is where you can do what you've got going on, what I've got going on. And it's like when pieces that shouldn't go together, and but they tell a story and they just go so wonderfully well with your personality, right? And so like I was just like, you look so gangster, you look so baller, like I love it, like the chain and the head wrap, you know what I mean? um I love that. And like I'm just wearing something like cheetah whatever, but this is like something that I would wear a lot, is this like pattern, right? Because I don't know, I just love it. It's just like it's a statement. Lee said it's its own color. Right?
Yeah, leopard print's a color.
It's a color, yeah. Um, and this, and I'm subdued today, like this is just like I would wear this to the grocery store kind of thing. But once upon a time, this would have been like loud, like this would have been really loud for me to wear, and because I didn't want to be seen and I didn't want to like be visible, and I was super, super, super self-conscious of like how I looked and my style because I hadn't quite figured out what that was just yet, and I would have to say most definitely since moving to Vancouver, because this is where fashion comes to die. I'm sorry, but it is. I've had to find my own. Everything is brown here. Everything is brown and black and beige. That's it. It's grayish. That's it. Like try to find color. And where do you find it? Vintage stores, thrift stores. That is where you go shopping here, right? And that's where you can then find the cool stuff. I don't know where it originates from. It must originate from Toronto or Montreal or New York or LA or something like that. And then it somehow migrates up here and then it ends up in some sort of like vintage shop. Because if you go into the actual stores, you're like, nope. I went into Victoria's Secret yesterday or a couple days ago and I was just like, everything is brown. Every bra in this place is brown. Why? Anyway, um, so I get this imposter syndrome. I get this thing about being judged and criticized. And I think for a lot of women, it shows up in like so many different ways and facets. And when you're speaking on stage or you're doing a podcast or you're running your own business or you are trying to express yourself like fashionably, through whatever it is, whatever you're wearing or your hair or your makeup or something like that, you know what I mean? We all have like something really unique inside of us that is super, super, super dying to like just get out. And I think sometimes we need not only our own inner permission, but the right environment too, to be able to be like, okay, I'm now going to express myself in this kind of way. And I think for you and me, it was being an entrepreneur, because I remember being in corporate and just being like, I'm so over wearing suits, like I can't do this anymore, and I'm so sick and tired of using the same font colors and or brand colors or something. Like I can't wait to have my own business so I can like explore brand colors and you know what I mean. um so but I mean, like, there's a lot of people out there who don't have their own business and who might be in corporate. So how can they like be iconic? How can they stand out? How can they have their own style, if they're really maybe not in an entrepreneurial type environment, but they've got something that they want to like explore and share in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it can be, I think it can be a little bit more challenging when you're in corporate, because obviously each corporation has its own identity, has its own culture, has its own style in itself. Like I remember when I worked in corporate, and there was no dress code, there was no uniform, but there was definitely like a style guide that wasn't talked about, right? So, if I decided to wear a pair of shocking pink tights one day, God forbid, Abby's got some pink tights on. Whoa, what's going on there? So, so of course, when it comes to style, when it comes to dressing, when I went to train to be a stylist at the London College of Fashion, there's a lot of rules to be followed, right? So it's that you can only wear, it's like wearing the colors that are right for you, wearing the material that's right for you. You learn how to style, you learn how to style a woman's body and how to dress her to make her look her most amazing self. So I love that, and I love the strategy that supports that, but I also love to break the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're like, I'm more style than fashion. Absolutely, 100%. Because who is it that dictates what's going to be in fashion? It's the designers that kind of come together and they decide what's going to be in fashion, and then it's dictated to us and then we follow it. Whereas style, you can really start to express yourself. So I would say it always starts with you, like, with everything. It starts with you, your values. How do you want to show up? How do you want to express yourself? What are the kind of people and opportunities that you want to attract? I've already mentioned that I'm a projector in human design. My strategy in, I know this isn't a human design podcast, but my strategy in human design is to wait to be invited. Well, I orchestrate the invitation by the way that I dress, the way that I turn up, the way that I dress. So like I'm always looking at, okay, who are my clients? Who are my people? Like how can I start conversations with them if if you're in corporate and you're going to an event and maybe you're not very confident like starting a conversation, like what can you wear that will start a conversation? Like if I walked into a room, Krisha, and I saw you, I would be like, oh my God, I love your, I don't know if it's a dress or a top, but I'd be like, I love your outfit. Is it
Yeah.
a dress or a top?
The top.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I'd be like, it's so, oh my God, and have you got a leather, seriously, have you got a leather skirt on?
Pants. Yeah.
Such a good look.
So for audio people, come to YouTube.
Yes, of course. Oh,
Wee.
so for audio people, by the way, Krisha looks had to trot in a leopard print, like polo top and some pants, some leather pants.
Yeah.
Amazing. I would be coming to you and going, I love your outfit. Oh my goodness. Like, where did you get it from? Immediately, that's a conversation starter.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
of course, for style, it starts with you. How do you want to express yourself? And I do believe that there's so many people in this world that want to express themselves in a certain way and they're held back. And, not just uh, by the way that they speak, and by the way that they act, but also by the way that they dress. I had a client once who was really going through like her own personal journey, a transition, and she really desired to dress more masculine. And part of that process was like, well, what is stopping you from doing it? And she said, you know what, I a lot of the people that I could potentially work with would not like they'd judge me by the way that I dress. And I'd be like, well, why do you want to work with people? Like, why would you want to work with people that would judge you for wearing like a man's suit or wearing a bow tie or something like that? And she's gone this beautiful journey, and now she like rocks up and she's really rocking. You know, she'll wear a fedora hat and a bow tie, and she'll wear like a man's waistcoat, and she looks incredible. She
Mhm.
really rocks it. But there was something about that that was holding her back from truly expressing herself because she was worried about what other people would think. I do think that as women, we can be released from so many things if we stop hanging our validation on the opinions of others.
I agree. And I also think that, I'm just thinking back to when I did first move to Vancouver and started to identify a new style for myself, because I didn't have access to the same kind of stores anymore. And I literally moved over here with just 2 suitcases, and that was it. And so I needed to amp up my wardrobe a little bit. And then I met my boyfriend, and he was into like the EDM culture here in Vancouver, so going dancing. And he creates jackets for DJs and things like that. And so he's like an artist in his own right, like kind of like this side gig thing. And his stuff was just so weird. And I remember being like almost a little judgy about it at first, like, this is weird. But then when I started going out and we started going dancing and I started meeting more people, more of the crew, it was like, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole style here that I would love to get involved with, or become part of. And the first couple of times I went out, I literally wore like yoga pants and a yoga top, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know what else to wear. Like, I don't have this yet. And then I started to find my own style in it. And so I felt like really insecure at the beginning. I felt like a fish out of water. I didn't know like what my place was in that. And one of my now besties is a fashion designer, and she designs like cat suits and really sexy stuff, right? And so I kind of started there, and I broke my ankle a couple of years ago, and I was determined to go dancing by my birthday. And so I broke it in September, and my birthday is the end of November. And so my boyfriend made me a jacket, right? And we call her Marilyn, because anyway, Marilyn Monroe. And then I said to my girlfriend, I want to wear a gold. I want you to design for me a gold cat suit. Like, it has to be gold. Like, I'm painted in it. Like, that's the only way I'm gonna. So it was sort of like my big entrance, right? And so she made me this gorgeous gold cat suit, and then I had this Berlin, which was like this beige, like kind of sort of the color of your sheepskin behind you there, like this beige like jacket, and I was like, yeah, now I feel it. Now I'm balling. Now I can walk into the club with my homies, like, that are like royalty in this space, that know everybody. Now I feel like I belong. And I felt like I found my style. And ever since then, like, I've been exploring and exploring and exploring. And then I brought those elements into my day-to-day life now. And so I found this like sexy kind of like club, like, you know, edgy sort of like style that was always in me. But I needed like sort of like that thing to get me there. And I felt incredibly insecure at first, really insecure, like a fish out of water. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't feel like anything matched. I would just be like, wow, I don't think I'm doing this justice or whatever, right? And I'm sharing this because it's like sometimes we do need to, when we're growing our wings, when we're in our caterpillar stage of anything, it's hella uncomfortable. But we just have to keep trusting ourselves, trusting our own desires, trusting our own intuition, trusting our own thing, and drawing on inspiration from whatever's around us. And I think at first things do feel uncomfortable, do feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know quite yet, like your client with dressing like a man, and like why was she doing that, and needing that sort of like, who are you doing this for, and why are you doing this, and like, and it being embodied rather than being a costume, you know and it sounds like she finally got to the point where it became embodied, and then that's, I think, how you become iconic. That's how I think you become visible. That's how I think you become stylish, because you are no longer, the clothes aren't wearing you, or the brand isn't wearing you, or the hairstyle isn't wearing you, or whatever, the jewelry is not wearing you, you're wearing it,
Yes.
an extension of you, and I know just from my own perspective of my own work in the world, I've been doing this for a decade, and I am only like really recently starting to feel like some of my material fits me in a way, or like I've always stood by everything that I've said, but like now I'm looking back at some of the things that I used to say, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was brilliant. That was brilliant, Krisha. But at the time, I didn't believe in myself, which is what you said.
Yeah.
And so I didn't pump out a lot of my material. I didn't pump out a lot of stuff because I didn't believe in myself. And it's like trying on that thing that was like a size too big, and like, ooh, does this look weird? Does this sound weird? You know what I mean? And now I've stepped way more fully into the messaging and the visibility piece, because something inside of me has caught up to all of it.
Yeah. I can resonate with that. I started my business, well, I'm 9 years, so I started 2016. And I really resonate with that. What you've just said about that it was always there. It takes something to then really like step into it. Like it's a different dynamic. And I also feel that with style, like you were talking about, is it costume? One of the first things that you're taught as a personal stylist is if I'm styling a woman, I want to make sure that she's wearing the dress and the dress isn't wearing her. Just what you said. And a lot of it has got to do with, is it the right color? Is it the right fit? Is it the right material? But also it really has got to do with embodiment, because I always say, like, you can dress a confident woman in a trash bag, bin liner, we'll call it in the UK, and she'll still look fantastic because that's how she's showing up. She's rocking it, she'll style it. For me, that's iconic. So it's not necessarily what you're wearing, it's how you're wearing it, it's how you're styling it. And you bringing in your style from clubs, I brought in my style from festivals. So I was going to a lot of festivals when I was in corporate, very, very unhappy in corporate, but thinking it was the only way that I could make money and, ego. I liked my role, and, I liked all of that, all the trimmings that went with it. And at festivals, I felt like I was really free. I could be myself. I could like wear sequins and put on, I don't know, angel wings, and like just really, really go for it. And and my wish was one day I just want my whole life to feel like a festival. It's not like the festival ends and then I have to go back to work. And I've created that for myself now. It's not like one thing ends, like a good thing ends, and then I have to go back to the humdrum. Like I'm literally created my life the way that I want to create it and continue to create it. And I've brought that festival style into my own style, but then kind of adapted it. And you were talking about like going into the club and being with your tribe. I've just come back from I co-hosted a retreat in Marrakesh, and it was very kind of like spiritual, very Kundalini. And Kundalini, Kundalini has got such a vibe and a style around it. You know, it's like the turbans and the is I think it's very kind of like spiritual glamour. So I really love to go into dip into communities. I love to do Kundalini every day, but I love to go into those communities as well and kind of like adapt as well, adapt to that style. So when I was in Marrakesh, I was like turbans and big earrings and floaty caftans, you know? And then like how can I incorporate that when I'm back in my hometown of Brighton and you know merging so I like to look different. So I can look different every single day. I can show up with a different style. I think there's still like an element of something running through it, but I do like to incorporate lots of different style as well. And I love doing that. It's like for me, it's ultimate self-love.
Mhm.
And ultimate fun, like my wardrobe or my closet is like going into like the dressing up box when I was little and like, what can I put on? What can I put on today?
Tickle trunks. I'd never heard of that until I moved here, and
Trunks.
now like all my friends have tickle trunks. I'm like, you have a tickle trunk? Like what? We're so I don't have it. Well, I'm starting to have a tickle trunk.
Well, we all need a tickle trunk, and that what a great name for it. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
doing that
Oh
now.
yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know. That's the first time I heard about that. Um okay, yeah. I love what you're saying there. Kundalini is a vibe for sure. I mean, it's a deeply, deeply, deeply intense and spiritual practice.
Yes, yes, of
not,
course. I
not
mean,
to not to like, you know, trendify it or anything, but it should become a trend because it's so deeply powerful. But anyway, that's a whole other topic.
yeah.
um the you said something well, I mean, you're seeing a lot of really amazing things, but you said something about bringing back your Kundalini style to Brighton, and um you know, kind of like what was coming to me in that was, well, first of all, I have a question for you. Are you open identity?
No, 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 no. I identify. Oh, sorry, in the human design. Yes, I am.
You are.
Sorry, I
Okay.
think you meant what do I identify as? I was like, Hershey?
Yeah,
No, yes, I am. Yes,
you
yes,
are. I knew it.
yes,
I knew it. And you
I'm
know how I knew it?
completely.
You know how I knew it? Because you are like a chameleon.
I am a complete
Me
chameleon
too.
and love it.
Me too. I'm open identity. Okay, so for those of you listening and watching, human design is a specific modality that like I use, you know, that Abigail uses. And I've done a couple podcasts with Hannah Chapman where we've talked about human design and what it is. So you can go to those particular episodes and learn more about it there. Um, so I don't want to spend too much time here talking about that. So for if go do your homework on what human design is and then come back. Because open identity is fun. And this is like the actor, you know, or the actress or whatever. And it's where we get to like play with different identities. And it's definitely something that I do a lot of too, because my style is across the board, right? Like there is not one thing. You will never find consistency with me, you know, like it's, I don't only ever just wear cheetah or whatever print this is. Like I have all sorts of different things that I can pull from at any given time. It, for me, it depends on my mood and how I'm feeling because I am defined solar plexus. But anyway, right? So it's like, how am I feeling? Anyway, so let's move on from that. But you mentioned that um, well, it kind of is tied in, but the the idea of bringing of having separation. So what do I mean by that? I had a coach years ago Her name's Marla Mattinson. She's still my mentor and guide, and she's amazing at what she does. And I remember her once saying to me years and years and years ago, if you don't come to terms, and I'm paraphrasing, if you don't come to terms with the skeletons in your closet, you're forever going to be hiding, right? And that always stuck with me. And now when I coach people, it's always like, it's shadow material, right? Like we got to bring your shadow to the light, because as long as you're in shadow, as long as you have all this shadow material, and you're denying parts of yourself, or you're hiding parts of yourself, you are going to be invisible, or you're going to struggle with visibility, you're going to struggle with imposter syndrome, you're going to struggle with these things, because that shame side of like, well, I don't want people to know this about me, right? And so, like, to your point about going to festivals and stuff, like, I don't want people to know that I'm a festivaler, or like Krisha, I don't want people to know that I go to nightclubs, whatever. It's like, no, actually I do. And you do, like we're not hiding those parts of ourselves because we don't have to, and so what I'm trying to get to here is there's a deeper conversation at play here, and some deeper like spiritual mindset, emotional work that does come with stepping into this iconism or visibility or whatnot, that's tied to shame, and that's tied to shadow material, and that's tied to hiding, because somebody somewhere said it's not okay for you to be like this, and that could be family, friends, school, culture, you know what I mean, whatever. And the more what we talked about a minute ago about embodiment, right? The more you embody it, the more you own it, the more you're like, actually, no, this is me, take it or leave it, the more you can step into that by working through the stuff that's really uncomfortable about being more visible, about like being more about who you are, the more that you will then be more of who you are in every situation. And I find that that is the least stressful way to live. It's the least stressful way to live when you can be authentically yourself. And I know that that is such a blah word out there now that everybody's using, be authentic, but it's like, it's true, you got to be authentic. And what does that mean? It means that if you have something in you that you want to express, you shall do so. And it's okay if you're feeling stuck in that. There's ways in which to work through it, and then once you've worked through that, you can have like little flavors, and so if you are in a corporate environment, or you are in an environment or whatever where maybe it's frowned upon to, I don't know, dress a certain way or express yourself in a certain way or something like that, it doesn't mean that you can't do it with your accessories or like something, there's always little teeny tiny ways. It's like using a pop of color or something like that. Like there's always teeny tiny ways that you can express yourself and show that little piece of your personality if you can't go completely balls to the wall with it, right? And I think just that is such a relief, in terms of style, but also in terms of personality, right? The more we can just express ourselves in a way that's the most natural way to express ourselves, the less stress and anxiety we feel about being in crowds or being visible or speaking up or whatnot. Like I do business development for a law firm. So you can imagine it's a law firm, right? And they're great because they know me, and they know like all of me. And yet when I'm like co-hosting our podcast or co-hosting our mastermind or whatnot, I dress in a way so not to attract too much attention from the actual message. Yes. But the other day I wore these earrings and they say killing it, right? And I just had the one like that.
I love
The
those.
week before I wore this, and like people were messaging me, I love your top, Krisha. You know what I mean? And I'm like, thank you, but everything else was like, a little more lawyerly, right? So it's like putting in that tiny little bit in the places that you can so that you can feel like relaxed in these environments.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, there is, I think it's having emotional intelligence around how to show up in what,
Mm.
I went to Egypt at the end of last year and I was very mindful of dressing a bit more modestly than I would do because that's my way of showing respect to the culture, But I was still styling it out. And
Yeah.
it was still done with style. It was just a different way of dressing. And I think I love the fact that you're talking about you don't want to detract too much from your message. You're very aware of your environment. And I think, to be recognized and um by that particular culture, I think, like we're talking about like a business culture here, then it does help to kind of dress a little bit like that vibe, but then having a little like cheeky, it's like a little cheeky wink, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm showing up and I'm corporate and I'm doing my thing over here and dressing professionally, but there we
Yeah.
go. I really love to use accessories for that, like with phrases and things like that. And sometimes really, really tiny, so people have to lean in, but they always notice it.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Let's talk about what I just brought up a second ago about like the shadow material and the deeper sort of like energetics and mindset and emotional work that is behind visibility, because it isn't just slapping on a necklace or slapping on a cheeky jewelry or something like that. Like there is more to it. There is that discomfort and the things to like kind of scrub up and work around internally, right? And so for somebody listening who's or watching who's like, dang, like I do have something inside of me and I do want to be a little bit more edgy and like, tired of this beige, you know? Like what would be some suggestions for her or him on how they can like really kind of like start to sit in the discomfort of that and walk into something that feels really deeply good and aligned for them.
I think first of all, it's about tapping into why, and I think you've already said this actually, like why do you want to show up in that way? What's your why? Why,
Mm.
what do you want to express? What is you? What does that look like? And visiting I call them like dirty little secrets. It's like the dirty little secrets that you don't want anyone to know, and
Right.
that's what brings the shame and that's what brings the resistance. And I do believe that dressing as well is like an expression of how you're feeling inside. When I was deeply unhappy in corporate, it was very obvious in my dress, that I wasn't feeling the joy in my life. Um,
Yeah.
so really going there and exploring, where's the resistance? Like following the breadcrumbs back, right? We all know that in order to be able to show up as the fully empowered, like biggest, best, brightest, happiest version of ourselves, we need to go and perhaps go and address, whether it's like any trauma or, specific experiences that have happened to us, perhaps in childhood, to go and kind of explore that so we can be showing up in a different way. Um, I
Mhm.
love EFT. It's one of my favorite therapies, modalities to do. There's lots of things out there that can help. And even just something as simple as journaling, really starting to express yourself through your writing? Who do you want to be? What, you know, where, how do you want to show up? What is stopping you? Where's the resistance? We spoke about this in our last podcast about self-forgiveness. My puppy's here, but well, he's not a puppy, he's 6.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah, so cute. Okay, so for your
He's
listeners,
got his own style.
go,
What's that?
go for the listeners, go over to YouTube right
Oh
now.
yes, of
Go to
course,
YouTube
yeah.
right now.
So this is Rudy. Do you call him, will you call him a wiener in
Yeah,
Canada? Or is that
yeah,
just
or yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what else they're called.
it's my wiener?
Yeah.
Wiener dog. Wiener dog. So yeah, forgiveness. We were speaking about it in our last podcast, and I really feel that this is you know, it's such a great piece of work, like forgiving ourselves, looking at where the shame is, like,
Mhm.
and again, just opening yourself up to like surrendering and releasing all of that. We often carry in our lives so much shame and so much anger and so much guilt, and once that's released, like, it's not just the way that you show, like the way that you dress, it's everything. It's just the way that you show up in life.
Yeah.
I always say the breakthrough comes after the breakdown. So, you know, I always talk about a rebirth. I
Mhm.
truly believe that if you want to rebirth as an iconic woman, man, person, leader, there's a big part of yourself that needs to die before that. And the part that needs to die is the part that is ashamed and resistant and angered and can't let go of things, is still holding on to the past. You release that and you let go of it, and then you can transform into something really magnificent and what you're destined to be. It sounds really deep, but it's such a beautiful process, this rebirth.
Yeah, it really is. Um, and I find that the dirty little secrets aren't really that,
Mhm.
they're not that big a deal. Like I've heard everything. I'm sure you have too. You know, like I've heard like so many stories, like absolute horror stories, like that were really bad, that people had experienced, to, you know, ways in which people are conducting their lives like today that they're like deeply ashamed of or whatever, they don't want anybody to know. So like there are a lot of dirty little secrets, quote unquote, that I hear in my business, and I'm always like, it's really not that big of a deal, you know, like it really isn't that big of a deal, right? Not to minimize or not to, um, you know, pshaw it or anything like that, but it's like, it's so big when it's in shame.
Yeah.
It's so big when it's in shame. And I find that with my clients, once they start to, I don't know if it's, you've experienced the same thing, but once they've, and for me, even with my own shame pieces, you know, once it's like kind of out there and spoken about, it's like, oh, you know, it wasn't really that bad, you know, and in the big scheme of things. But you're right, that part needs to die, meaning it needs to be loved,
Yeah.
right? It needs to be loved. Like when I talk about shadow work and all of these like dirty little secrets and things like that, I liken it to, you know how at the bottom of the ocean, like way, way, way down there that we've never even seen before, there's all these like little creatures. And then when we, like us humans, can manage to get down there and we shed light on that, like it's like, there's like these
Yeah.
ugly,
They're like this, aren't they? Ugly little creatures.
yeah. And we're just like, oh, you're so, that's our shadow material. Like if those creatures lived in the light, they would be pretty.
What?
Those anglerfish would be prettier.
That's great. That's such a great description of shadow work.
right? It's like, it's okay. They're just like, they've just been in the dark. That's why they look the way they look, you know, that's all.
But it's like, it really, I mean, you really have to go there, and it takes a lot of courage, right?
Yeah.
To do
Oh,
it. Is
Hondo P. You nailed it right there. It's the
yeah.
courage. I love that you use EFT, and speaking of like rebirthing, I have a client of mine. Her name's Jill Ferris. And I interviewed her for this podcast last year, or last 4 years ago, whatever. It still feels like last year. Anyhow, she's a projector as well. And she's an EFT practitioner. And I often end up hiring my clients because they're all just amazing people. And so I hired her for a period of time to help me work and process through some deep emotional stuff that I was kind of a little bit stuck on. And we did a rebirthing. It just, and it wasn't like we didn't intend to do it. It just, like, you know how it is with this type of energy work, right? She's taking me through. So basically EFT, why don't you explain what EFT is while I grab my charger here?
Well, the way that I described EFT is that it's like acupuncture for the brain.
Mhm.
So you are tapping on certain meridian points on your body. And it's actually the acupuncture points that are used in Chinese medicine, ancient Chinese medicine. And what you're doing really is that you are tapping on the limiting beliefs, dirty little secrets, like, all the things that are hidden and that are causing trauma, that are causing a strong emotional reaction within your body and triggering you. You can actually, in a very loving way, tap on certain parts of your head, your face, and your upper body while you're saying those words. And I mean, I discovered EFT about 6 years ago, absolutely fell in love with it, was like, I need to learn how to do this myself. I went and trained to be a practitioner. Um, and it's used very, very effectively. Actually, one of the things that it is used for is war, like men that have been to war and have got PTSD. And, like a lot of men, they haven't been encouraged to share. So they're keeping everything to themselves, and they're carrying a lot of trauma, and it's been used very effectively in those situations. The way that I also like to use it as well is that you tap on the limiting beliefs, you tap on all the things that you're scared of, uncomfortable about, that you don't believe in. And then you can actually then turn that around and turn it into positive affirmations. And I also like to do a lot of rebirthing and child going visiting, like hanging out with your little child as well during EFT sessions. But it's a really amazing tool, and it can just be used every day. I tap on myself every single day. I tap on my dog. I tap on my house plants. Anything that's got energy, I'm like tap tap tapping. I love it so much.
Wow, that's cool. Tapping on your plants. Yeah, I mean, they're life, right? I've got
They
my life
are.
behind me here, my little children.
Yeah.
Well, when I worked with Jill on this, we did a rebirthing, just to go back to that little topic for a quick second. And it was really interesting. Like it was really powerful. Like I was really in it, like really in it. And having this like experience of being rebirthed, and it was pretty cool. Like I was actually born in the 70s, so it was the 70s. And I don't know, I think I was born in a hospital, for real. Yeah, I was born in a hospital for real. But this birthing was in a living room, like one of those sunken cool, like, I love mid-century modern, anything mid-century modern. So like sunken living room, and everybody was like on
Mhm.
ottomans on the ground, and everybody was just like, yay, she's here, like, yay, like celebrating my arrival, and just like so excited for me to be born into this world, and like really like revered, and like, you know what I mean? And that was my rebirthing. And
Oh,
it helped so much. It really did. It helped so much, like kind of reprogram some stuff within me, even though it was like my imagination. It just kind of helped me feel a little bit more like, you know, I'm wanted in this world. You know what I mean? Like I'm celebrated in this world.
Oh, Krisha, I really love that you got to do that. How
Yeah.
amazing, what an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what I really love about EFT, because you can go back and visit, situations that you had when you were a child. You can go back to where that particular belief or trauma or whatever started, and then you can do that. One of the things that I really love about it, and it just reminded me of it then when you was talking about it, is that, when we manifest, we often think about the future. We're looking at all the things that we want to do in the future, but actually we can manifest where we are at this present moment by going back and changing our perception of the past. So you said a lot of it was made up. A lot of it is made up. It's like false memories, but then we hang our hat on it and live our life and make decisions based on these memories, that things that might not have even happened. So I love to take my clients back to a situation. I don't know, say they've got stage fright. Every time they go on stage, they're shaking, they can't hold the mic, their voice is wobbly, it's affecting, when they're speaking opportunities. So we can go back and we can look at a particular time that might have happened when they're at school. So say if they're at school and they stand up and they're speaking and then they pee their pants or something and the whole class is laughing at them, and that's then showing up when they're an adult speaking on stages. To actually go back and then start to recreate a different story. So you start to reposition it. Like, so I stood up in class and I said what I had to say and I shared about myself, and everyone started cheering and chanting my name, and everyone was coming up to me afterwards and hugging me and saying how much they loved me and what a great talk it was, and do you want to go and play? And then we all went and played in the playground. So like repurposing it, it's really very, very effective when you can change your memories in that way so that you can start to show up in a completely different way in the present. So you can totally manifest from the past the same as you can in the future.
Yeah. Uh, And, like sometimes we just need to do a little mind trickery. It's not to bypass the thing that happened. We still need to look at the thing that happened. We still need to, work through whatever it is that we need to work through around it and not bypass it, right? Like for real, shitty things happen to people, right? However, I like what you're saying here because it's like if we're hanging on to a memory that isn't serving us because it literally is something that's not great that happened, and we are manifesting from that part, like we're carrying this like negative energy or this like sadness or dirty little secret or feeling of unworthiness, like because something legit happened at a certain point, and then we're like, but I want this thing in my future. And it's like, but we're manifesting it from that person, that wound, we are carrying that wound into the future. I don't know that I've thought about things in this way. So thank you, Ms. Projector, for giving us an alternative view here. I like it. Um, in terms of like, let's go back, let's etch a sketch. Like, let's acknowledge that this thing happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Now let's etch a sketch it, right? For anybody who doesn't know what an etch a sketch is, it's just look it up. And it's like a kid's game that you shake and you can draw on it and then you shake it to erase everything. And then draw something new, right? Draw a new experience. And then that way, you kind of are in a way bypassing your nervous system to say it is safe for me to do public speaking. It is safe for me to do these things because look at the applause and look at the accolades I got. And look, like it's almost Delulu in a way. But, if that's what we need as adults in order to just be able to move forward in our lives and not be stuck in the past, then I'm all for it. But the caution here, which is what we are not saying, the caution here is to do what I call is playing whack-a-mole, which is where you think you're dealing with something when you're really not dealing with it. You're just like bypassing it. You're just skirting it by. It's a near miss or whatever. You're whacking it down, and it is going to come up again if you don't actually look at it. So you got to really look at the material. You really need to look at it. And I have found that like when I walk my clients through some of their material, it's never as scary once they've talked about it or revisited it as it is like when it's living in their minds, you know, in their nervous system. You know, it's like, oh, is that it? It's like, yeah,
Yeah, it's
we're done. We're good
minimalism.
now. Now let's
Yeah,
cut a sketch to your point and tap on something fresh and new and a different kind of experience, and then let's manifest from that place.
yeah,
That,
definitely. It's
that,
confidence hacking
yeah.
is what I call it, confidence hacking. But yes, for sure, it needs to be dealt with because it will come back.
Yeah.
It will pop up in other areas.
Yep. Just like that angler fish coming out from the dark. It'll be
Like
like,
that will take you out for sure.
yeah. That's so funny. Um, we're getting close to time. What was there anything else on your heart and your mind that you wanted to like bring to this conversation? Like, I don't know. I'm just loving your look here. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, please come over to iTunes, check out the YouTube, or sorry, please come to YouTube and check out the video portion of this podcast, because my guests are stunningly amazing people. And Abigail, you just look so cool. Like you just look so cool, and I want people to see that.
Thank you so much. I've seen your guests and they are very cool. You're a collector of incredible people. You really are. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I did want to leave actually is I really kind of toyed around with the what kind of word I would use to really be able to demonstrate the way that I desire for every single woman to turn up in this world. And iconic really struck a chord with me. And one of the things that really inspired me is that we go to south of France quite a lot. We go to Cannes in south of France, and I just love it there. It's a really amazing place. Lots of abundance and happiness and joy, and it's very diverse. You know, there's a real strong sort of like North African community there. It's really, really cool. And I remember going just to the local supermarket. We were just going to go and buy some cheese and some bread. And we were walking outside in the car park to the car, and this woman walked out of the supermarket, and she must have been like, I'd say she was like mid 70s. And she had this man's oversized suit on. So she had this man's suit and she cinched it in at the waist with a belt, and she had her hair up like in a like the French beautiful, the way that the French do it. I can't remember what it's called. Is it a chigon or so? I can't remember.
Chignon.
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 She had a chignon. Her hair was white, and she'd basically styled this suit with the most amazing brooches. They were big and bold, and she was just walking through this supermarket car park dressed like that in her 70s. And I just looked at her and I thought, oh my gosh, like she just looks amazing. And she really inspired me. In fact, the French women really inspire me. They're definitely iconic, the way that they show up, regardless of their age. And I just thought, you know what? This isn't about being beautiful, sexy, pretty. This is about being iconic, whatever your age is.
Mhm.
And I think that that's one of the things that I just wanted to leave with all of your beautiful listeners and viewers. Like when you can really eliminate and make peace with and deeply, deeply heal all the parts of you that are resistant to show up because they feel shame around it and resistance. And once you've healed that and you can really show up in your iconic self, it doesn't matter what happens to us because we're all going to get old. Our bodies are going to change. We're women. Our bodies change all of the time. We have children, or we go through menopause, or we get ill, or we put on weight, or we lose weight. It doesn't matter about any of that. You can always show up as your iconic self because the clothes are a physical manifestation of how you're feeling inside.
Mhm.
So if you feel iconic inside, if you feel confident and self-assured and you love yourself, you'll always show up as that iconic person.
I agree. I love that. Thank you. I so love having you as a guest. I really appreciate you being here and sharing all of this wisdom and style with us. How can people find you? You're on Instagram.
I am, yes. So I'm the Visibility Goddess on Instagram. I'm Visibility Goddess on all of my social media channels. You can find me on YouTube as well, the Visibility Goddess. And my website is abigailrebecca.com.
Mhm, mhm. Visibility goddess. I love it. Anything with the word goddess in, I love. Not everybody does though. There are a lot of women out there who don't like that word and they don't resonate with the term and they're uncomfortable with it, you know? And I say that's amazing. Keep leaning in, keep leaning in, keep leaning in, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I really had to sit with it, I have to say. Um, I really, really had to sit with it. Yeah.
It's true. Like the first time I heard that word, I was like, I didn't like it. I rejected it. I thought it was a gross word. There was something about the word goddess that I was just like, ooh. And now it's like, oh my God. Like, yes, it's everything.
Mm.
It's like it's everything. It's not just like some silly term.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I agree. And I'm not the visibility goddess. We are the we are the visibility goddesses.
Yeah.
It's really speaking into what's possible for my clients, for all women, actually, not just my clients, for all women in this world.
Yeah, because the women that you work with, when they go out into the world feeling iconic with more visibility, then it's like, it's that butterfly effect, right? They're then giving other women permission, right? And so, like, just, I love it. Like, keep doing your work, which I know you are and you will. And then those women are going to go out and then they're going to just by essence like share this, you know. That's how we change the world. That's how we do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very, very much needed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whereas, to have that courage and conviction and confidence to stand up and speak our truth and express whatever we feel needs to be expressed in this present moment, it's crucial, crucial work for us. So we all need to be very, very serious about this, which I know that you are. And, I really appreciate you inviting me on for a second time. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely to hang out with you.
Yeah, same. I wish I was there because then we could go shopping together.
I know. How cool would that be?
It was so fun. I actually found England had really great style. I got a lot. I lived there for almost a decade, and I got a lot of really awesome clothes when I lived there. So I do miss like Topshop, and I do miss some of the stores and stuff. Yeah.
Well, Topshop, it's a everyone was devastated. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people were devastated because Topshop closed. Like Topshop,
Oh.
I know it doesn't, and I'm like there's this whole trend on TikTok, like how many, like the men's Roman Empire. Did you ever see that trend on TikTok? Like so it's like how they were going around and asking men, how many times do you think about the Roman Empire? And these men were like, every day or at least once a week. And it was like, why are men always thinking about the Roman Empire? I don't know. It was the thing. And then it was like, what's the equivalent for a woman Roman Empire? And a lot of the women were putting on Topshop, Oxford Street in London, because it was like so amazing and so iconic as well in the noughties when Kate Moss was doing a collab with them. And anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Yes, there are some very iconic brands in the UK.
Yeah, yeah, there are for sure. All right. Well, Abigail, thank you so much for being here. And we've got all your socials and places to find you. And for those of you listening and maybe now watching the Dirt and the Divine, because I told you to go over to the YouTube channel. Thank you if you did. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. This is such a passion project for me, and I love interviewing iconic women and sharing this really important message for everybody. And so if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe and share and leave reviews, really good ones. That would be very helpful. And thank you so much for being here. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you, Abigail, for being here. I really appreciate it.